Here's the information we get that kind of stems the beginning of this investigation. There was a company, a armament plating company here in Sugar Land, Texas, right? And we noticed that on the elect forms, there's a load of donations going to Robert Torricelli, a senator from New Jersey. So somebody tells us, hey, doesn't make sense. I wonder why that's happening. First thing we do is we look at Torricelli's assignments. He's on, the weapons, or he's on the Armed Forces Committee, and we start to put it together, contracts, whatever. So we start going out and doing some interviews. And they're basic interviews, just like what did you do? How did you donate? Oh, well, I gave 20, whatever the limit was at the time, $2,000. And then my boss gave me a bonus the next week. So we start seeing this straw donorship piece. And then that leads to looking at more things. And then we come up with an import-export company from Bergen County, New Jersey, Asian-American guy, Korean, who was utilizing every possible loophole in order to bring his products into the country. Who's his best buddy? Robert Torricelli, the sitting U.S. Senator. Yeah. Torricelli had him convinced that he had connections, are you ready, in the North Korean government that would allow this guy to do business, grain business, in North Korea. Now, this is a smart dude. This is a smart man. So when we finally got to him and developed him as a source, and there's tons of funny stories about this guy, but we finally developed him as a source, he's like, he didn't have those connections. We're like, David, you should know. You're a South Korean, countryman. Yeah, I thought it was kind of strange, but he kept asking me for cash and Mercedes-Benz and custom-made suits. So I just kept getting it. And he did write a letter for me. Yeah, well, of course he fucking wrote a letter for you. But so this guy's sitting in the Senate doing this stuff. In addition to that, there's so many crazy stories based on that. There was a sanitation guy, right? We know this is Jersey, right? Yeah. Sanitation guy. So Chang one day calls us. Guy's named Dave Chang. He passed in jail, sadly. He calls and he says, hey, I was just in the 7-Eleven up in Fort Lee, and I'm stirring my coffee, and he had the best memory. So he's like, I'm putting French vanilla creamer and I'm stirring it. In comes Bob Torricelli in a New York Jets varsity jacket. So all right, David, look, you're going to be a witness for us at some point. Yeah. You can't be making these stories up. Pull the tape, he goes. Then he goes, I'm not done yet. This guy, Jimmy Demetrakis, who owned a big sanitation company, mobster, pulls up behind him. He's threatening to throw me into a wood chipper and then throw me. So we're like, all right. So my boss goes, would you mind just taking a minute and taking a ride up to the 7-Eleven, see if they have the tapes? So my partner and I, Gary, we're like, I can't believe we got to fucking waste time. We go up there. Guy says, yeah, I have the tape. Put it in. Exactly what said happened. So then it starts to become more of a press. We search. This is unprecedented. We search. Mary Jo White was the U.S. Attorney in New York, Southern District. We search Torricelli's house. We have his attorney, Ted Wells, follow us. It's unheard of. I let him walk with the attachment to the search warrant so he could see exactly what we were looking for. Ted Wells is walking step to step. There's the TV. Oh, my God. The TV's got a scratched off serial number. Exactly. Oh, there's the 2 Mercedes-Benz. Oh, wait a minute. There's the suits, the custom-made suits, all lined up in order. He goes, this is corroboration, guys. We're in trouble. Get the date of that search warrant? It's the Thursday before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
9/11 hits. God rest all those souls and everything that happened there that day. And Mary Jo White calls us on the Thursday after when we were going to indict a sitting U.S. Senator. And she said, guys, how can I possibly indict a sitting United States Senator when those buildings are burning right down the street from the courthouse? And it went away. The case went away.
And that was entirely?
It. Entirely.
Got wiped?
Wiped.
How can you not?
How can you not?
I mean, to me, that's...
How can you not?
Even more, those burning buildings, you need to fucking...
This guy was selling this country in his role. So my claim to fame is I'm probably the only FBI agent to ever get the finger and a fuck you from a sitting United States Senator. I was passing him in a hallway and he was like, fuck you, you missed. Right? So
is that it wouldn't be double jeopardy, but if they made it go away, can they not ever
But by that time, the gig was up. You know what I mean? Everybody knew we were looking at them, and we had pen registers, we had shit going on. We getting ready to go on on a wiretap. Which, by the way, everybody thinks wiretap's so easy to get. Bullshit. It's the hardest thing in the world to get. but when you get it, it's gold.
Yeah.
If you get it and use it properly and you tickle the wire and do all those investigative tactics that make sense, that we still do in our business these days. You know, we're on the verge. We go right to the line with what Andy and I do and our boys, but right up to the line. But we can do that kind of stuff, which is helpful, right? So when I look at that case, it just takes away, when people know that, it takes away their confidence in the FBI back then. And right before, this was happening right before 9/11.
Yeah.
Right? So think about that failure.
Yeah.
Think about what happened there, the lack of communication behind each side. So corruption for me took a back seat for a minute. It came back with some really cool, interesting cases, but the buildings get hit. I'm there on the day of. So I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
So
Before you get into that,
yeah, man.
Just so with Torricelli,
Yes.
so nothing ever happened to him.
The only thing that happened, the Senate spanked him, right? So they came in and said, "Hey, look, we're going to some ethical violations, some moral ethical violations on his elect forms, on his election campaign contribution forms."
Yeah.
Saying, well, there were straw donors, there was different things going around. The dude was taking cash hand over fist. I mean, our guy, the source paid him $150K a pop for like a series of 2 or 3 payments. He got $500,000 cash, corroborated by his girlfriends. He had about 4 or 5 girlfriends, including Mick Jagger's ex-wife, Bianca Jagger, which was a great interview, by the way, because I asked her if I said, I'm going to interview you and I'm not going to be your beast of burden, which it was a bet, and I got off it. She loved it, so it was good.
That's fucking great.
But yeah,
are those bribes typically wires from straw donors, or like it's multiple layers of not being able to connect dots? But is it usually wiring money into another account, or?
I mean, the campaign is always a popular kind of way and method to do that. What you'll find amongst most of the U.S. attorneys is, unless it goes in somebody's pocket, unless that guy takes that money, that campaign money, and puts it in his pocket or uses it for Mayor Eric Adams, right? That's kind of the classic example, the New York City mayor that just was indicted. Yeah. Then they're less likely to charge it.
So what is the way that they're like, what if you can go like A to B from wherever the money is originating from, and whoever the beneficiary is, if it's a senator, whoever's being bribed, what does that money flow look like for them to get away with it? Usually
it's one of two things. It's either straight up cash, right, for a particular official action, or it's something, right? So that conversation looks something like the politicians that are good at it, the Pelosi's and the Adam Schiff and those guys that are still good at it, the Jerry Nadlers, right? It's a conversation like, damn, I got college bills coming up this month, That's how they do it, and then all of a sudden the college is paid through some nonprofit or through some PAC or something along those lines. That's mostly, but there are, on the local politics side, there are a lot of cash bribes.
Yeah, it's actual
hard cash. Just, I need 5 more houses on that plot, and the planning and zoning board is not coming through for me, Mayor, and you're the voting member. What do you need? Well, I need $15,000 per plot. What do you want? Okay, and it shows up, cash, or it shows up with a car or a vacation or a cruise, any of those things.
But I guess from like a forensic accounting standpoint, if somebody wants to not do it in cash and it's going to come as a bank wire, how are they able to hide that?
Yeah, and it's for us, it's our partners with the IRS, their criminal investigative division are amazing, right? So that's their job, is to do that source and application investigation, and it goes. For instance, we had a mayor who he had a state job in New Jersey. He was making about $110,000 a year, yet his expenditures were 4x that with no bills.
Yeah.
So, he left himself open. As we started to look at things, we started to realize how that money was being filtered in, whether it was just straight up cash, or the fact that how can you have 4x the expenditures and not have any credit card bills? Where did it come from? There's no money. We know what he started with on this day, right? So now you've got a cash situation. People are actually either taking time over beating the CTR rules, beating the banking industry's rules, taking out $9,000 instead of the $10,000 that triggers that CTR, that cash transaction report, and paying him over the course, and it's the long game. They play the long game. So, hey, I can't get this to you all in the next 6 months, but within a year, you'll have $75,000 cash, or you'll have a new Lincoln Navigator, or you'll have X, whatever. So
when it's vehicles, because that seems like a fairly common thing, how are they getting around registration and titling and licenses and all that shit?
It's amazing, and it's all thought out. So you have somebody who's the fake recipient of that vehicle that'll go out way outside. For instance, Torricelli, he's living in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is very close to New York City. They went to Binghamton, New York, upstate New York, and made the purchases from a Mercedes dealership there for his girlfriends. So you had Judy Balaban get one, you had Bianca Jagger get one, and then of course where they parked in his driveway, right? So he still had well, that's my girlfriend's Mercedes Benz. No, it's not. Yeah, bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're driving it every day. So it's creative. It's very creative, and for the most part, you get tired of corruption investigators because they're such long-term cases. You can get tired of that work quickly. Especially because. Most of your U.S. attorneys, most of their offices, and it's a special prosecution unit that does the corruption cases, are very, very selective about cases they take or the standards and the thresholds that they need from you as an agent in order to prosecute that case.
Is there a higher standard of proof, a burden of proof on your guys' end if it's a senator, a mayor, as opposed to me?
We always felt that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's written. What's supposedly you break a law, I break a law. It should be the same as John Kerry, for instance, but it's not. Yeah. And a lot of that is there's special permissions that need to be taken. If I want to subpoena your bank account today, nobody's going to argue with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able. Let me subpoena it. Let me take a look at it. If I go to subpoena Hillary Clinton's or the Clinton Foundation, that's going to be tied up in court for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right, so you just get frustrated. Like there has been active subpoenas from 6 different FBI field offices on the Clinton Foundation's bank records for as long as I've been.
Because they have a fleet of attorneys that fight it, it just gets tied up.
Fight it every day.
And then guys like you, 10 years later, like fuck it, I'll just move on to the next.
Yeah,
one.
I'm going to do the next case, or monitoring it, but not necessarily expecting it to come through.
Well, so that answers my biggest question in hearing this is that, Pelosi's and it's on both sides,
On both sides. Yep.
But why aren't there more prosecutions of, or at least heavier looks into these people? And that's why is because
that's a big reason.
You do it just gets fucking railroaded.
And your U.S. attorney has aspirations for the next job. Think about Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Right. So Jersey U.S. Attorney, District of New Jersey, became the governor. And then we saw him on the stage, right, trying to become president. We saw him wandering around Trump looking for a job.
Yeah.
So Christie, that was never unspoken. Plus, I ran the corruption unit when Christie was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. And I can remember having conversations with him about numbers. It wasn't necessarily about the fact patterns. What can we win? Versus, let's take them all.
Yeah.
Let's take them all. If we go 500, we still put a bunch of people where they belong, and the other ones had better attorneys. And there are those cases. So he was big on, I don't want to have a loss because I'm looking to become the governor and ultimately further down the line something more. So that when people say the FBI is weaponized, it's not. And I hate to say this, but who is really driving that train are those that are prosecuting those cases because their aspirations are either to go out, become, take back over their defense firm or to become greater, in power.
Yeah.
So they can't afford to have it put on them. So what's easier than a guy who's making GS 13 money, put it on that guy and say, oh, he was looking to F that guy up. I can tell you, rank and file, the things we've done and seen, we're just looking to pass the evidence along and seal the case tight, and what happens, happens. Jury world is a weird place.